and looked the general dead in the eye. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was razor sharp, sliced the air like a knife. "You left my unit to die, sir." A gasp moved through the crowd like wind through dry grass. The general stared at her, stunned. "I don't recognize you," he said slowly. "What unit are you talking about?" Her answer was quiet, but it dropped like a bomb. Raven 12 Firebase, Red Echo. October 15th, 2016. Silence. Real silence. Even the whispering stopped. A colonel shifted uncomfortably. One major's hands began to tremble. Another looked down at his boots. People remembered. That name, Raven 12. A unit officially listed as lost with all hands. Everyone gone, no survivors, no one ever talked about it. Jade, she'd always been in the background. She fixed targeting systems faster than any junior officer. She knew comms protocols by heart. She never panicked during live fire drills, and yet everyone thought she was just a quiet tech, a behind-the-scenes support worker. It's a kind of person you nod to, but don't remember. But now, she was no longer invisible. She had just reminded everyone that sometimes ghosts walk among the living, and sometimes you remember everything. After the ceremony, the base felt different. People avoided eye contact. The air felt heavier. No one approached Jade. No one dared. But her words echoed in every hallway. "You left my unit to die, sir." That night, a young intelligence analyst named Thompson sat at his desk long after hours. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Raven 12, Firebase, Red Echo. He typed the words into the restricted archive system. Access denied. Classified, clearance. Level, Red-4, but Thompson didn't give up. He dug deeper, bypassing old encryption layers, following a trail through forgotten folders. And then he found it, a half-corrupted after-action report, buried in an old backup directory. Raven 12, a 6-person reconnaissance unit sent deep behind enemy lines for surveillance. The date matched. During their mission, they were ambushed. Badly, they sent multiple requests for emergency extraction. But then, the report showed something chilling. Their medevac request had been rerouted. The order had come directly from higher command, signed by then Colonel Gregory. The mission status was listed as total unit loss, no survivors. But there, at the very bottom of the page, almost hidden, survivor account, unverified name, Gwen. Jaden technical sergeant status. Unreliable witness due to combat trauma. Thompson leaned back in his chair, heart racing. Unreliable witness. She survived. And they erased her. He kept digging. An old comms technician remembered seeing something. He left a voice note years ago. There was a woman. Crawled back into base 2 days later. Burned, dehydrated, no supplies. Just dog tags in her hands. Babbling about being left behind. They had debriefed her for hours and then sealed the file. Labeled her memory as damaged. Psychological trauma. And then they buried the whole thing. Now it all made sense. Her early morning routine, her silence, her cold precision, her refusal to attend ceremonies, her quiet presence at the back of the room, always watching, never participating. Jade wasn't just a tech worker. She was a survivor, a soldier who had been abandoned, silenced and erased from the very system she served and the uniform she wore. Every day wasn't just for show. It was a quiet uniform of mourning at the base. Whispers spread like wildfire. She was part of Raven 12. She lived through it. Why didn't we know? How could they erase her like that? People who had ignored her for years suddenly remembered things. How she always ate alone in the cafeteria. How she never smiled during the flag ceremony. How she stared at her desk drawer like it held something sacred. How she refused any recognition, like she didn't deserve it or didn't want it. They used to call her the ghost in the back room. Now they understood why she was a ghost. A walking memory of a forgotten sacrifice. The next morning, a private meeting was called. Inside a closed-door conference room sat the most powerful people on base: commanders, senior officers, intelligence heads. She sat calmly at the far end of the long table. No uniform, no rank, just presence. General Gregory walked in last. His face looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from something heavier. He stood at the head of the table and spoke first. "I've reviewed the files," he said slowly. "I don't remember ordering a unit to be left behind. I made decisions in combat, hard ones. I trusted the reports I was given." He tried to sound confident, but his voice cracked at the edges. Jade didn't argue. She just reached into her jacket and placed something on the polished table. It was a scorched metal plate, burnt at the edges, darkened by smoke. A military ID tag, barely readable. She looked at the general that belonged to Captain Martinez. He was the last person who saluted you, while begging for medevac. The room was silent. She pulled out a small notebook, old, worn, yellowed with age. She opened it slowly, placing it flat on the table. Her fingers turned the pages gently, like she was touching graves. Each page was handwritten names, blood types, final transmissions, medical status, positions. It was her unit's final log kept while bullets flew, while teammates bled, while hope died. She turned the pages, her voice calm, but every word hit like a hammer. Sergeant Williams took shrapnel to the chest protecting our radio man. He died calling for help. Corporal Chen held our position for 6 hours with a collapsed lung. She died thinking someone was coming. Private Rodriguez, 19 years old, bled out in my lap. His last words were, "Tell my mother I was brave." Specialist Kim, our medic, used his last supplies on me. He died so I could carry their story. Private Thompson, the youngest, held my hand and made me promise I'd never forget them. No one in the room breathed. No one dared speak. General Gregory's hands trembled as he flipped through the notebook. Each line, each name, each number, written with perfect precision, like she'd written it 1,000 times in her memory. "These are incredibly detailed," he whispered. Jade nodded. "I was the communications specialist," she said quietly. "It was my job to document everything." Then she placed one last item on the table. A torn page, military letterhead, handwritten. Transcript. Her voice was low, steady. "This was our last radio call," she said. "Raven 12 to command. 3 Kie, 2 critically wounded. Requesting immediate medevac at Grid 41 SMB 12,345. We are combat ineffective but holding. Please advise." She took a breath. "Your response came at 13:47 hours. She paused. "Raven 12, redirect to Grid 41 SMB 54,321. Higher priorities elsewhere." Out she looked at him. That new grid. It was 12 kilometers away, through enemy territory. We had no vehicles, no supplies, no way to move our wounded. The general's voice cracked. I didn't know you survived long enough to document this." Jade nodded again. "We didn't survive," she said. "I did. That's enough." And then she stood up. For the first time, her voice carried the weight of command. "I'm not here to ruin your career, General. Not here for revenge or justice. I'm here so no one ever forgets the cost of one quiet order. You made a tactical decision. I accept that, but 5 people died because of it, and for 8 years I've carried their memory alone in silence. Today, I needed you to know their names." The room was frozen, And then something no one expected happened. General Gregory slowly stood and raised his hand in a salute, not to his peers, not to rank, but to her. To the last voice of Raven 12, all the other officers followed. They stood at attention, not for the general, but for Jade. She didn't return the salute. She just nodded, placed the notebook and dog tags on the table, and turned to leave at the door. She stopped and said, "One last thing. These don't belong to me anymore. They belong to history." Jade didn't ask for anything. No apology, no recognition, no medal. She just walked out of that room, leaving behind a scorched ID tag, a notebook full of ghosts, and silence so heavy it stayed in the air long after she was gone. The next day, soldiers looked at her differently, not with pity, but with quiet respect. Some nodded when she passed. Others stood a little straighter. When she walked into a room, she still showed up before sunrise. Still calibrated equipment. Still worked the logistics board in the back room. But something had changed. Now they knew who she was. The girl they ignored, the one they called the ghost, had become a living memorial for 5 fallen heroes. Weeks passed. She received invitations, a leadership conference, a veterans memorial event, a graduation ceremony at the military academy. She turned them all down. Her reply was always the same: let those who didn't come back speak instead through how we serve. One day, someone opened her locker. Inside were things no one had ever seen. A letter from Sergeant Williams's sister, a ribbon with Private Rodriguez's initials embroidered in red, a challenge coin from Corporal Chen, a field patch with blood still on its every item, carefully folded, cared for, protected. She had become their unofficial monument, not in marble, but in memory. A month later, without warning, Jade was gone. No farewell party, no salute, just a note on her desk. I'm not disappearing. I just needed the truth to stand. The mission is complete. Her workstation was left untouched for days, as if people hoped she might return, but she didn't. Later, someone found out she had quietly transferred to another remote base, still working tech support, still showing up before dawn, still serving in silence. Some say she moves from base to base, never staying long, always behind the scenes, always invisible, but always remembering. At Base Bravo, something changed after she left. A memorial wall was quietly built near the main entrance. No speeches, no media, no parade. Just a simple plaque engraved with 6 names, and one line beneath them: they held the line. Every October 15th, someone leaves 6 small American flags at that wall. No one ever sees who does it, but everyone knows it's for Raven 12. Closing CTA message: you may meet someone like Jade in your life, quiet, distant, not clapping, not saluting, not standing with the crowd. Before you judge them, ask yourself, what weight are they carrying? What battles have they survived? What truth are they honoring by not pretending? Because sometimes the most honest gesture is no gesture at all. And sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who held the line when it mattered most. Remember Jade? Remember Raven 12? Remember, honor isn't always loud.